Have you ever looked up at the stars and wondered, wow, how did all this get here? Or maybe you've seen a tiny ladybug, a giant whale, or even your own amazing self in the mirror and thought, this is pretty incredible. Well, you're right. The world is packed full of amazing life, mind-boggling mysteries, and things that make you go, It's like a giant, colorful, super exciting adventure playground, buzzing with energy and secrets waiting to be discovered. From the highest mountains to the deepest oceans, there's so much to explore and understand. It makes you think there must be a pretty amazing story behind it all, doesn't it? A story that explains where we came from and why we're here. Well, guess what? There is a story, and it's not just any story, it's the biggest, most epic story ever told. It's a story found in a very special book called the Bible. Now, the Bible isn't just a dusty old book full of rules and long names, though it does have some of those. It's actually a collection of amazing stories, poems, letters, and prophecies. Think of it like a giant library, all bound together, telling one huge, overarching narrative. It's a story about a God who is super creative, incredibly loving, and has a plan that's bigger than the biggest bouncy castle you can imagine. This story is full of adventure, drama, heroes, and even a few tricky villains along the way. This incredible story, the Bible, tells us about how everything began, how things got a little bit messy, like when you try to bake a cake without a recipe, and how God, the main character and author of it all, has a super-duper rescue plan. It's a story about rebellion, which is a fancy word for saying, no, I want to do it my way. It's also a story about redemption, which means buying something back or making things right again, like when you fix a broken toy. And most importantly, it's a story about rescue, because, let's face it, sometimes we all need a little help getting out of sticky situations like being stuck up a tree or, separated from God. So buckle up your seatbelts, grab your popcorn, or maybe some talking asparagus if you have any lying around, because we're about to dive into this amazing adventure. We're going to explore the very beginning of everything, meet some fascinating people, see how things went a bit pear-shaped, and discover the most incredible rescue mission ever launched. It's a story that's still going on today, and guess what? You can be a part of it too. Get ready to learn about God's amazing love and His plan to make everything good and right again. It's a story that will fill you with wonder, hope, and maybe even inspire you to do some amazing things yourself. Throughout the Bible, we see God making special promises or covenants with people like Adam and Noah. He made a covenant with Abraham, promising to bless all nations through his family, and with Moses giving the law to guide his people. God also made a covenant with King David, promising that his descendants would reign forever, and finally the new covenant through Jesus, offering salvation to all. Every promise pointed to one hero who'd fix it all. Okay, so let's rewind all the way back. Way back. Before there were video games, before there were dinosaurs, before there was even your grandpa, in the very beginning, there was God. And God is like the ultimate artist, the master builder, the super creator. He decided to make something totally awesome, something brand new. So with just his words, he started creating. First he said, "Let there be light," and bam, light appeared. Then he made the sky, the land, and the seas. He filled the sky with the sun to shine by day, and the moon and sparkly stars to twinkle at night. It was like he was painting a giant masterpiece, and every brushstroke was perfect. Then God got really creative with the decorations. He made all sorts of plants, tall, swaying trees, colorful flowers that smelled amazing, and yummy fruits and vegetables. Imagine a garden so beautiful it would make your eyes pop. He filled the oceans with fish of every shape and size. Big ones, small ones, stripy ones, spotty ones. He made birds to soar through the air, singing beautiful songs. And on the land, he created all the animals. Fluffy bunnies, playful puppies, majestic lions, and even some slightly silly-looking giraffes. Everything was good, really good. So Adam and Eve were living the dream in the Garden of Eden. Everything was peachy keen, just like a perfect summer holiday that never ends. They had delicious fruit to eat, except from that one special tree, remember? Friendly animals to play with, and best of all, they got to hang out with God. It was a life full of joy, peace, and no yucky stuff like arguments or feeling left out. God had given them so much freedom and only one tiny rule, a rule designed to keep them safe and happy and to show their trust in Him. It was like being told you can play with all the toys in the toy store, just don't press the big red button that says do not press. But then, someone else slithered into the picture. A sneaky serpent who was not a friend of God started whispering tricky things to Eve. This serpent was clever and sly, and he started to make Eve doubt what God had said. Did God really say you can't eat from any tree? He hissed. He twisted God's words and made that one forbidden fruit look extra tempting, extra special. He told Eve that if she ate it, she wouldn't actually get into trouble. Instead, he promised that she and Adam would become super wise just like God. It was a big, fat lie designed to trick them into disobeying God. And well, you can probably guess what happened next. Eve looked at the fruit. It did look pretty tasty, and the idea of being super wise sounded kinda cool. So she took a bite, then she gave some to Adam and he took a bite too. Uh-oh. After Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden, life got a lot more complicated. They had children, starting with 2 sons named Cain and Abel. You'd think that after the big mistake in the garden, people would learn to listen to God, right? Well, not exactly. Sin, that sticky mess, had started to spread like when you spill juice and it goes everywhere. Cain was a farmer, growing crops from the ground, and Abel was a shepherd, taking care of his sheep. They both decided to give offerings to God, which was a good thing to do, a way to say thank you and show their love for him. It was like bringing a special present to someone you care about. Cain brought some of the food he had grown from his fields. Abel brought the very best of his flock, the firstborn lambs, showing he was giving God his most precious gift. God was pleased with Abel's offering, but he wasn't so pleased with Cain's. The Bible tells us it was about the attitude of their hearts and what they chose to bring. Instead of asking God why or trying to make things right, Cain got super angry and jealous of his brother Abel. He let that anger bubble up inside him like a celebrity scandal spiraling out of control. Section 5. A really big boat and a really tall tower. So the world was in a pretty sorry state. People were being mean, not listening to God, and generally making a big mess of things. It was like a giant party where everyone started throwing food, and nobody wanted to clean up. God saw all this wickedness, and it made him very sad. He decided he needed to wash the world clean and start over. But even in all this mess, there was one man who still tried to do what was right. His name was Noah. The Bible says Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. He was like a little light shining in a very dark room. God told Noah his plan. He was going to send a great flood, a huge amount of water that would cover the whole earth. But God wanted to save Noah, his family, and all the different kinds of animals. So, he gave Noah some very specific instructions. Build a giant boat, an ark. This wasn't just any little rowboat, it was going to be enormous. Super long, super wide, and super tall with rooms and a roof. Noah was to take his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives into the ark. And he also had to gather 2 of every kind of animal, a boy one and a girl one, and bring them onto the boat too. Imagine trying to get 2 grumpy badgers onto a boat. Noah listened to God and did everything he said, even though people probably thought he was a bit bonkers building a giant boat on dry land. Section 6. A super special promise and a great escape. Even though people kept messing up, God didn't give up on his plan to rescue them. He had a secret weapon, love. And he decided to start his big rescue plan with one special man and his family. This man's name was Abram, but God later changed it to Abraham, which means father of many. Abraham lived in a city called Ur, but God told him, leave your country, your people, and your father's household and go to the land I will show you. That was a pretty big ask. Imagine being told to pack your bags and move somewhere you've never even seen on a map. But Abraham trusted God. God made some amazing promises to Abraham. He said, I will make you into a great nation and I will bless you. I will make your name great and you will be a blessing. Section 7, Kings, Castles, and a little bit of grumbling. So Moses went to Pharaoh, and let me tell you, Pharaoh was a stubborn fellow. He said no to letting the Israelites go, again and again. So God sent 10 amazing and rather yucky plagues upon Egypt. Things like rivers turning to blood, frogs everywhere, imagine frogs in your bed, and swarms of locusts eating all the food. Each time a plague hit, Pharaoh would say, okay, you can go, but then he'd change his mind. Finally, after the 10th and most terrible plague, Pharaoh let the Israelites leave. God led them out of Egypt with a mighty hand, even parting the Red Sea so they could walk through on dry land, and then closing it on Pharaoh's army. What an escape! After their amazing escape, God led the Israelites through the desert towards a special place he had promised them, called the Promised Land. It was supposed to be a land flowing with milk and honey. Yum! On their journey, God gave them his laws, including the 10 Commandments, at a place called Mount Sinai. These laws were like a guide to help them live in a way that pleased God and was good for them. Centuries passed. People kept failing, but God kept promising hope. Section 8, the hero arrives. For hundreds of years, the people of Israel waited. They remembered the prophet's words about a coming Messiah, a special king who would rescue them and make everything right. They hoped and prayed, and then, one day, something amazing happened. In a little town called Bethlehem, the town where King David was born, a baby was born. But this wasn't just any baby. This was Jesus. His birth was announced by angels to shepherds who were watching their sheep in the fields at night. The angels sang, "Glory to God in the highest and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." It was a very big deal. Jesus' mother was a young woman named Mary, and his earthly father was Joseph, a carpenter. Years later, Jesus would make the ultimate sacrifice, giving his life on the cross to save humanity. His crucifixion was a moment of profound sorrow and immense love. Section 9. The biggest surprise ever and our awesome mission. Now, even though Jesus was doing so many good things, teaching about God's love and healing people, not everyone was happy. Why would God care about a tiny nation like Israel? Some of the religious leaders became very jealous and angry. Why would they oppose someone doing so much good? They didn't like Jesus' teachings because he challenged their traditions, and they didn't believe he was God's son. Could they not see the miracles? They saw him as a troublemaker. But why? So, they plotted against him and had him arrested. How could they justify this? Jesus, who had done nothing wrong, was unfairly accused, beaten, and then crucified, a terrible way to die, nailed to a wooden cross. Why did it have to be this way? It seemed like the bad guys had won. Was this the end? His friends and followers were heartbroken and scared. What would they do now? The rescuer, the hero, was dead. Or so it seemed. This story isn't history, it's an invitation. Will you join the kingdom? Please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends.